Today's story is about a woman who gave up her family, her devoted husband, and her loving children to pursue a fleeting affair with a younger man. However, life doesn't always go as expected, and she faces loneliness and regret when she is abandoned by her lover and shunned by her children. Please follow the story, and if you enjoy it, don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment. I never imagined that my life would turn into a bizarre horror tale on Reddit. Yet here I am, live evidence that certain horrors never go away. I'm 27 years old, and up until a few weeks ago, my life was rather predictable. My name is Alex. My regimen consisted of working out, going to the gym, and then browsing Reddit before sleeping. Then I got to meet her. Jenna was magnetic. In addition to being gorgeous, the type of woman whose gaze could make you forget your own name. After meeting at a friend's party on a random Saturday, we were chatting like old friends reuniting within hours. It seemed almost too natural to be true. In hindsight, that ought to have been my first caution. She had the ability to make you feel like the most significant individual on the planet. It seemed like she was speaking exclusively to me. I became enamored. After we began dating, things quickly got out of hand. She literally moved into my apartment in 2 weeks, with her belongings merging in with mine, as though they had always been there. However, I caught her staring at me while I was sleeping one night, which was the first concrete indication that anything was wrong. Not the kind of stare that makes your skin tingle, the kind that is tender and affectionate. Before I even opened my eyes, I was awakened by the weight of her stare. Her face was expressionless as she sat on the edge of the bed. "Jenna, are you all right?" My voice sounded sleepy, yet my heart was pounding all of a sudden. She tilted her head slightly after blinking slowly and deliberately. She said, "I just like watching you," and then grinned. A typical individual would have felt uneasy. A typical individual would have inquired. But me? It was charming, I told myself. She had fallen in love. Isn't that the appearance of love? Infatuation? If only I had anticipated what would happen next. In hindsight, I ought to have left that evening. It wasn't love. It was something else. The way Jenna sat there, observing me as if I were a specimen under a microscope, a darker one. But I convinced myself it was simply a quirk and didn't run. When people are in love, they do strange things, don't they? So I dismissed it. I allowed her to remain. My first error was that. The weeks that followed were both a dream and a horror. She was the ideal girlfriend throughout the day, preparing my favorite meals and leaving small notes around my apartment with phrases like "thinking of you, my love," "you make my world brighter," and "once, you belong to me forever." I should have given the last one more thought. However, things became strange at night. Jenna would be awake when I woke up, just lying there and staring at me with an unreadable expression, even though I felt like someone was breathing right close to my face. She also began to get possessive. It was the kind that watched my every move like a hawk, not the cute, envious kind. She would inquire as to who I was speaking to if I was on my phone. She would act as though I had betrayed her if I arrived home 5 minutes late. I was spending one evening at my best friend Ryan's house. Jenna was waiting for me in the dark when I arrived home, but we were simply catching up and enjoying some beer. Not a light, no television, just sitting in the center of the living room, motionless. "Jenna," I paused at the door, feeling uneasy about something. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" She took a while to respond. Rather, she got to her feet slowly, deliberately, and approached me. "You were with him again," she uttered in a remarkably composed tone. "Yeah? I told you I was going to hang out with Ryan," I said, being careful not to sound too serious. "We were just having a few beers, nothing crazy." At the time, she had a smile, but it wasn't a comforting one. It was the kind of thing that makes you feel sick. As she traced a finger down my arm, she said, "You should spend less time with him. You belong with me, Alex. The way she said it made me shiver for some reason. I dismissed it with a joke, pretended to be exhausted, and then went to bed. However, I didn't get any sleep that night. Jenna slept next to me, breathing evenly and slowly, and I just lay there, staring at the ceiling. But occasionally, I could feel her gaze on me. Things took a far darker turn the following day. My phone was gone when I woke up. I initially believed I had simply misplaced it. However, I eventually located it in the trash after looking everywhere. As if nothing were wrong, Jenna stood in the kitchen drinking coffee. I stood up and said, "Jenna, did you throw my phone away?" Unfazed, she glanced at me over the rim of her mug. "Maybe you should stop talking to people who don't matter." There was silence in the room. I tightened my hold on the phone. "Jenna, this isn't okay." Her gaze grew gloomy. "Why do you need a phone when you have me?" I realized then that I wasn't in a relationship. I was confined. I also didn't know how to escape. Something changed inside of me as I stood in my kitchen with Jenna, staring at me as if I were the crazy one. It wasn't love. This wasn't typical. However, how do you leave someone who is constantly observing? Someone who has previously demonstrated that they own you rather than merely loving you? That's when I realized I needed to exercise caution. What would have happened if Jenna had thrown away my phone after seeing me sleep? I made an effort to grin. I put my phone on the counter and said, "You're right," as if it didn't matter. "Perhaps I do focus on it too much." Her face instantly softened. She approached me, putting her head against my chest and her arms around my waist. She whispered, "I just want you all to myself. Avoid any interruptions. Only us." I made myself give her a hug in return. "Only us," I repeated. However, I was already organizing my escape in my head. Jenna made it difficult for me to pretend to be normal for the following few days. She followed me everywhere I went since she was so attached to me. She would be standing in the corridor, watching me in the dark, if I woke up in the middle of the night to get water. She also began to make brief remarks, things that seemed like veiled threats but first sounded pleasant. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Alex. If you ever left me, I think I'd go crazy. I can't let anything take you away from me." I slept very little every night. I felt more stuck every morning. Ryan then gave a call. "What the hell, dude?" As soon as I lifted him up, he remarked, "You've been missing for a week." I paused. I was certain that Jenna, who was in the adjacent room, was listening. I answered in a casual tone, "Yeah, man, just been busy. You are aware of how it is." Ryan remained quiet for a while. "Are you all right?" That question struck more forcefully than it ought to have, because, no, I wasn't feeling well. I felt afraid. Before I could respond, Jenna smiled and came to the doorway. I murmured, "I'll give you a call later," and hung up. Jenna approached and took my phone from me. "Who was that?" I took a swallow. "Ryan." Her face clouded at once. "I dislike him," I said cautiously. "You don't have to like him. I am friends with him." Jenna's fingers gripped my phone more tightly. "Alex, I only care about what's best for you. Others don't." My stomach dropped. What is meant by that? She smiled once more, but her eyes had a different expression. "Something hazardous." She returned my phone and said pleasantly, "Nothing. Don't remember anything I said." However, I was unable to. For whatever Jenna had planned, I had the uneasy impression that it had already begun. Ryan didn't respond to my texts the next day, or my phone calls. I initially believed that he might simply be preoccupied. Then I looked at Instagram, though. It has been 2 days since he last posted. He was not like that. There was a problem. Despite my best efforts, I was unable to resist the paranoia that was beginning to crawl into my gut. Something strange had been mentioned by Jenna. She had given me the impression that she knew something I didn't. I took Jenna's phone that evening while she was taking a shower, locked. I tried to celebrate her birthday. False. I gave mine a try. False. The day we met, I gave it a shot. It became unlocked. I was scrolling through her texts with trembling hands. That's when I noticed it. An exchange with an unidentified number. As I read the messages, my heart froze. Jenna, be careful he doesn't approach. Unknown completed. He will no longer be an issue. Jenna, all right. Nobody stands in Alex's way. I was ill. How could she have done that? The shower then turned off, and I heard it. I pushed myself to breathe and returned her phone to its original location. With a towel wrapped around her, Jenna entered the bedroom and grinned at me, as if she hadn't just told my closest friend to go, as if she were not a threat. I needed to leave. I wasn't running for myself anymore, though. I was frantically trying to survive. I didn't get any sleep that evening. My body remained motionless as I lay in bed with my heart racing. I knew better now, but Jenna was right next to me, breathing steadily and slowly. She wasn't your typical overly cautious girlfriend. She was unique, something hazardous. What had she done to Ryan, too? More than anything, I needed to leave, but I also needed answers. The following morning, I remained calm, pretended that nothing had altered. I laughed at her ridiculous jokes, smiled when she kissed me, and allowed her to encircle me as if I were under her authority. But my thoughts were racing. It was just a few miles to Ryan's apartment. I had to see how he was doing. However, Jenna was constantly observing. I had to be careful not to raise her suspicions by simply leaving. So I said, a falsehood. With my keys in hand, I said, I'm going to get some groceries. She was drinking coffee at the kitchen table while observing me through the rim of her mug. I'll accompany you. My stomach turned. You usually claim to detest grocery shopping, so no. I'll be right there. She grinned. I decided to change my mind. I realized then that she also didn't trust me. Panic swelling in my throat, I gulped. All right, I responded, stifling a laugh. Leave now. The whole time we were at the store, she held my hand, a firm hold, as if she feared I would flee. When she wasn't looking, I attempted to text Ryan but got no response. Once, when she moved aside to get something, I even called. Directly to voicemail. There was a problem. I thought I might lose it by the time we returned home. I required room. I had to think. However, Jenna never failed to notice me. When she eventually dozed off that night, I took the initiative. I discreetly got out of bed, picked up my keys, and made my way to the door. I had to leave, so I didn't even bother with shoes. However, her voice broke through the darkness as soon as I touched the doorknob. Alex, where are you heading? I went cold. I turned around slowly. She was observing me while sitting up in bed. She wasn't upset, though. She wasn't shouting. She was grinning, as if she had anticipated this. I made myself laugh, just taking a breath. Her head was cocked. You didn't intend to abandon me, did you? I took a swallow. Come on, Jenna. You're acting strangely. She came toward me after sliding out of bed, her bare feet scuffing the floor. You love me, don't you? I certainly do. Why are you lying, then? My blood became icy. Her voice was hardly more than a whisper as she took another step closer. Do you really believe that I have no idea what you're doing? With a pounding heart, I stepped back. Jenna, she took hold of my wrist. Close, too tight. Alex, you're mine. Her fingernails pricked my flesh. And when people try to leave me, I don't like it. I felt a wave of panic. I grabbed my arm and ran to the door. However, as soon as I turned the handle, it failed to open. I made it more twisted. Locked. What the devil? I muttered. Behind me, Jenna chuckled quietly. Did you really think I'd let you go so easily? My chest heaved as I whirled around. Unlock the door, Jenna. She gave a head shake. No. Something broke inside of me. I rushed past her and made my way to the window of the bedroom. She was mistaken if she believed she could imprison me like an animal in a cage. However, the window was nailed shut when I got there. I felt sick to my stomach. Slowly, I turned. Jenna was observing me from the doorway. She grinned. Try again. I was confined, and I realized for the first time I might not survive this ordeal. I stood there with my pulse pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears and my breath coming in short gasps. The windows were nailed closed, the front door internally locked, and Jenna smiling as if she had already won, standing there. I made myself maintain my composure. I couldn't lose my mind. Not quite yet, I said with a flat voice. Jenna, this isn't typical. I can't just be locked in. She continued to smile. What would make you want to leave at all? Choosing my words carefully, I swallowed. Sometimes I just need space. That is typical, isn't it? Just a little time to get my thoughts straight? She cocked her head as if thinking about it. She said plainly, no. My heart fell. After that, she took my car keys out of her pocket. I was completely unaware that they were gone. Even though she was calm, there was a hint of anger in her voice as she said, Alex, you're not going anywhere. I took care of everything for you. I ensured that we were flawless. And you still wish to go away from me? I balled my fists up. I simply want to visit Ryan. Her face grew serious. Ryan is no longer important. I felt cold. How on earth did that imply anything? How did you treat him? With a trembling voice, I asked. Jenna simply sighed, as if I were wearing her out. You pose too many inquiries. I realized then that I was running out of time. I had to have a plan, and I needed it quickly. Despite her intelligence, Jenna had a weakness. She believed she had already won. She didn't expect me to fight back, because she was so certain she had me under control. So I went along with it. I made an effort to grin. You're correct, I replied. I've been behaving strangely. I have no idea what got into me. Despite the suspicious flash in her gaze, Jenna remained silent. I moved in her direction, slowly, with caution. Jenna, you are loved. I don't wish to go. She opened her mouth a little as if she wanted to accept my story. So I did the only thing that came to mind. I gave her a kiss. I detested it. I detested her. However, I gave her a genuine kiss, as if I wasn't going to destroy this entire place in order to get away from her. Her hold on the keys relaxed as I withdrew. That was my opportunity. I snatched them up and fled. I didn't turn around. I continued. I simply ran. I arrived at the front door and struggled with the lock, nearly dropping the keys due to my trembling fingers. I heard footsteps behind me. Alex! She was on her way. I slammed the door and ran away. My vehicle was parked a short distance away. I shoved the key into the lock and ran toward it. I had Jenna close behind me. She lunged as soon as I opened the door. She screamed like a crazed animal as she gripped my arm and dug her fingernails into my flesh. I can't let you go. As she flung herself against the window, I yanked the door free, slammed it and locked it. Her hands slammed on the glass as her face contorted in anger. I didn't care, though. I got the car started. My tires squealed against the tarmac as I sped out of the driveway. She was standing in the street, watching me vanish into the night, as I could see in the rearview mirror. I went directly to Ryan's flat via car. I knocked on the door, and nobody responded, but his car was in the driveway. I was aware that something was amiss. I slammed the door shut, and there he was. Ryan, his face swollen and bruised, unconscious on the floor. I believed him to be deceased. I shook him and fell to my knees. Hey Ryan, get up. There was nothing for a terrible moment. Then he let out a moan. His eyelids opened, and his face contorted in agony upon seeing me. Alex, he croaked. Tears pricked my eyes. What on earth went wrong? Was Jenna? Ryan took a deep breath. Some guy got in. My blood froze. Jenna made a hire? He gave a feeble nod, instructed me to avoid you. Ryan flinched and touched his ribs when I declined. Beat the living hell out of me. With anger brewing in my chest, I gritted my teeth. The psychopath. It had been a long game for her. Observing, manipulating, getting rid of everything that got in her way. After taking out my phone, I contacted 911. This was it. I refused to be controlled by Jenna. She would not prevail. Conclusion: that evening, Jenna was taken into custody. As it happens, she had a past. She had already fallen for another guy before me. She had already attempted to keep me forever. The one that assaulted Ryan? He told everything, claimed that in order to ensure that Ryan was out of the picture, Jenna paid him. She was imprisoned. I also regained my life. However, there are still evenings when I wake up with the impression that someone is observing me. And occasionally, I get this depressing feeling when I check the locks on my door, as if she's still alive, awaiting, observing, due to Jenna's inability to let go. Not at all. Never.